Western countries like France and the UK are willing to recognize the State of Palestine. And although this seems to be largely a symbolic gesture, we can ask ourselves why there has never been a Palestinian state. Or has there been one already? This is actual history, and today we are going to discuss the troublesome road to Palestinian statehood. Ever since the 7th of October 2023, the Middle East has once again become the focal point of media attention. Now, several countries are willing to recognize the State of Palestine. In 1988, Yasser Arafat issued the Palestinian Declaration of Independence. As of now, more than 145 nations have recognized the State of Palestine. But despite these recognitions, there is no true state of Palestine. Yes, there is Gaza, which came under control of Hamas in 2007. By now, much of Gaza is destroyed and under Israeli occupation, while fighting between the IDF and Hamas is ongoing, as well as the misery of the Gazan population. Then there is the West Bank, a whole patchwork of different areas either administered by Israel, the Palestinian Authority led by Mahmoud Abbas, or under shared administration. More Western countries are willing to recognize the State of Palestine, and this raises the question why there never has been a true and independent Palestinian state. Before World War I, these areas were part of the Ottoman Empire. There was no independent Palestinian state. Rather, the area was part of Ottoman provinces populated mainly by Arabic-speaking Muslims and Christians alongside small Jewish communities. After World War I, the League of Nations granted Britain the Mandate for Palestine, 1920. Britain was tasked with preparing the territory for self-government, while also implementing the Balfour Declaration, 1917, which promised a national home for the Jewish people. This dual obligation created conflict. Jewish immigration increased, especially in the 1930s as European Jews fled Nazi persecution. Arab Palestinians resisted, fearing dispossession, and rejected the idea of a Jewish state. Tensions exploded multiple times. The Arab Revolt of 1936-1939 was suppressed by the British and left the Palestinian leadership weakened and divided. After World War II, international sympathy for Jews surged. In 1947, the UN proposed Resolution 181, partitioning Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state, with Jerusalem under international control. The Jewish leadership accepted the plan, even reluctantly, because it provided international legitimacy. The Arab leadership and Arab League rejected it, arguing it was unfair. Jews were 1/3 of the population, owned less than 10% of the land, yet were offered 55% of the territory. More importantly, they rejected the idea of dividing Palestine and recognizing a Jewish state. This was not the first time they rejected a partition plan. The 1937 Peel Commission proposed a partition plan that looked like this, and this plan was also met with Arab rejection. Meanwhile, by 1947 a civil war had broken out in Mandatory Palestine between Jews and Arabs. When the British withdrew in May 1948, Jewish leaders declared the State of Israel. Arab armies from Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq invaded. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War ended in Israeli victory. Israel not only survived, but expanded beyond the UN partition borders. Around 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled and became refugees in what they called the Nakba, which means catastrophe. A similar number of Jews was expelled from the Muslim world. Crucially, the land that the UN had designated for an Arab Palestinian state was not made independent. Jordan eventually annexed the West Bank and East Jerusalem in 1950, and the Gaza Strip came under Egyptian military control. Neither Jordan nor Egypt created a Palestinian state. Jordan wanted to absorb the territory into its own kingdom, while Egypt avoided granting independence for fear of creating a rival government. For almost 2 decades, the West Bank came under Jordanian rule. Jordan granted citizenship to West Bank Palestinians, but integrated the area as part of the Hashemite kingdom. The Egyptians set up the All-Palestine Protectorate. Historians are divided as to whether the All-Palestine Protectorate represented a genuine attempt at an independent Palestinian state, or if it was simply a facade for Egyptian occupation. When Egypt and Syria formally merged into the United Arab Republic in 1958, Gaza was incorporated into this new Arab state, yet in reality it remained under Egyptian military control. Arab states largely treated the Palestinian cause as part of the larger Arab-Israeli conflict, not as a project for Palestinian sovereignty. Things changed drastically when the 1967 Six-Day War broke out. In just a few days, Israel captured the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. Suddenly, Israel directly ruled over more than 1 million Palestinians. This transformed the conflict. Out of frustration, Palestinians increasingly organized under their own banner. The Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, created in 1964, gained strength after 1967 under the leadership of Yasser Arafat and Fatah, Palestinian National Liberation Movement. The demand for an independent Palestinian state became central to Palestinian politics. However, Israel, the United States, and many Western countries long consider the PLO a terrorist organization, limiting its diplomatic reach. The Palestinian Declaration of Independence, drafted by poet Mahmoud Darwish, was proclaimed by Yasser Arafat on the 15th of November 1988 and marked the formal creation of the State of Palestine. Yet it was a formal creation. The declaration wasn't proclaimed in Gaza nor the West Bank, but in Algiers, the capital of Algeria. Yet hope loomed on the horizon because in the 1990s the Oslo Accords between Israel and the PLO created the Palestinian Authority, PA, granting limited self-rule in parts of the West Bank and Gaza. The vision was that this would lead to a full Palestinian state, but negotiations broke down over borders, refugees, settlements, and the status of Jerusalem. Since then, repeated efforts at peace have failed, and in 2007, Hamas took control of Gaza and kicked out Fatah. When Hamas launched its deadly attack on Israel on October 7, 2023, the conflict entered a new and bloody phase with no end in sight. For years, British governments have spoken about the possibility of recognizing a Palestinian state, but always as part of a broader peace settlement, ideally in coordination with Western allies and timed for maximum impact. They argue that recognition should not be offered as a mere symbolic gesture. While it might look morally satisfying, it would not bring any practical change on the ground. Recent developments, however, have pushed some governments to act. The worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza, growing anger over Israel's military operations, and shifting public opinion have all contributed to the current momentum. In some cases, recognition has been tied to conditions. Canada, for example, has linked its support to the Palestinian Authority's willingness to carry out reforms, organize elections in 2026, and ensure that a Palestinian state is demilitarized. When Britain announced its position, it shifted responsibility onto Israel, stating that it would recognize Palestine during the UN General Assembly unless Israel took concrete steps, alleviating suffering in Gaza, agreeing to a ceasefire, halting annexation of the West Bank, and committing to a two-state peace process. Many international politicians advocate for a two-state solution. But is that a solution at all? Let's say the Palestinians do get their own state. It would mean there are two separate entities, Gaza and West Bank. Gaza is now in ruins. The West Bank is full of Israeli settlers. So is a two-state solution really viable? Others speak of a one-state solution, a binational state. Does that sound viable? We don't know, because it hasn't been implemented yet. All we do know is that the Israel-Palestine conflict won't disappear from media headlines anytime soon.